I wasn't supposed to fall in love with her, not when my entire life had been built on silence. Not when I'd spent 15 years learning how to disappear into a crowd, how to listen without being seen, how to lie so smoothly that even I forgot what the truth felt like. Not when the agency had trained me to treat every person like a puzzle, something to solve, something to use, something to walk away from without ever looking back. But I did, and the moment I did, everything I believed in, everything I was, began to collapse. It's been 3 years since that night. 3 years since they pulled her out of my life in handcuffs, her face blank, her body rigid, her voice just a whisper lost in the chaos. 3 years since I watched my world fracture like glass under a hammer. And still, I can't stop thinking about the way she looked at me in that final moment. Not with hate, not with regret, but with something that looked almost like relief, like she'd been waiting her whole life to be caught, like she'd been waiting for someone to finally see her. I don't know if I'll ever understand what happened between us. I don't know if what we had was real, or if it was just two ghosts pretending to be human for a little while. But I know this. I loved her. And that love didn't just betray my country. It erased me. My name is Nathan Price. I was a CIA deep cover operative for 15 years. And this is the story of how I fell in love with a Chinese sleeper agent and lost everything. San Francisco, 2019, late August. The fog rolled in off the bay like it always did, thick, gray, swallowing the city in silence. I remember standing on the corner of Market and Fifth, watching the tech workers pour out of their offices in waves, their faces glowing blue from their phones. The city had changed so much in the decade I'd been there. It used to feel dangerous, unpredictable. Now it just felt expensive. I was living under the name Daniel Harrow back then. Software consultant. Freelance cybersecurity analyst. The kind of job that let me move through boardrooms and startup offices without anyone asking too many questions. The kind of job that gave me access. That was my life. A carefully constructed lie that I wore like a second skin. The agency had placed me in San Francisco in 2009, right as the tech boom was accelerating. The mission was simple. Embed yourself in Silicon Valley, monitor Chinese influence operations, identify intelligence officers operating under commercial cover, and report back. Nothing glamorous. Nothing cinematic. Just patient, invisible work. The kind of work that requires you to live a double life so completely that you forget which one is real. I was good at it. Better than most. I didn't have a family waiting for me back in Virginia. No wife, no kids, no one who'd notice if I disappeared for a year. That made me useful. That made me expendable. The agency loves men like that. Men who've already given up on having a normal life. Men who've traded connection for control. So I lived alone. I worked alone. I moved through the world like a shadow, gathering whispers, building files, watching the invisible war unfold in conference rooms and coffee shops and encrypted Slack channels. I told myself I was fine. I told myself I didn't need anything else. Met her in October. It was a Thursday evening. A networking event at a co-working space in SOMA, one of those soulless glass buildings filled with startups that would be dead in 6 months. The event was hosted by a Chinese venture capital firm that the agency had flagged months earlier. We suspected they were funneling money to companies with ties to the Ministry of State, Security, China's intelligence apparatus. My job was to attend, blend in, gather names, and disappear. I remember the music was too loud. The wine was cheap. Everyone was talking about AI and blockchain like they were the second coming. I hated these events. But I was good at pretending I didn't. And then I saw her. She was standing near the back, alone, holding a glass of water instead of wine. She wasn't trying to network. She wasn't scanning the room for targets like the rest of us. She was just standing there, watching. Her posture was calm, almost detached, but her eyes were sharp, like she was filing away every face, every gesture, every word. She looked like someone who didn't belong there. Someone who was pretending just as hard as I was. I don't know why I walked over to her. Maybe because she reminded me of myself. Maybe because I was tired of talking to people who never said anything real. Maybe because, for just a second, I wanted to talk to someone who wasn't a target, not a fan of networking either. I said. She looked at me, and for a moment, I thought she might just walk away. But then she smiled, a small, guarded smile, and said, "I find it exhausting." Her accent was faint. American, with just the slightest trace of something else beneath it. Mandarin, maybe. Or Cantonese. I couldn't tell. Same, I said. But I need to be here. Work. Me too. She didn't offer her name. I didn't offer mine. We stood there in silence for a moment, and I felt something strange, something I hadn't felt in years. Curiosity. "What do you do?" I asked. "Data analysis," she said. "Risk assessment for tech companies. You?" "Cybersecurity consulting." She nodded. Everyone's a consultant these days. I laughed. It felt foreign, like a muscle I hadn't used in a long time. We talked for maybe 20 minutes. Nothing deep. Nothing personal. Just surface-level conversation. Work, the city, the absurdity of Silicon Valley's obsession with disruption. But the whole time, I was watching her. The way she chose her words carefully. The way she never quite looked away, but never quite held my gaze either. The way she seemed to be calculating something behind every sentence. She was a professional. I could tell, and that should have been my first warning. Her name was Lee Dot at least. That's what she told me. We exchanged numbers that night. I didn't think much of it at first. I'd done this 100 times before. Meet someone, get their contact info, see if they lead anywhere useful. It was part of the job, part of the game. But then she texted me. "Coffee sometime?" I'd like to continue the conversation. I should have said no. I should have kept my distance, run a background check, flagged her for surveillance. But I didn't. I told myself it was operational, that I needed to know more about her, that she might be connected to the VC firm I was investigating. But the truth was simpler. I wanted to see her again. We met at a cafe in the Mission. She was already there when I arrived, sitting by the window with a book in her lap. I remember thinking she looked different in daylight, softer, somehow, less guarded. She was wearing a gray sweater and jeans. Her hair was pulled back. She looked normal, like someone you'd pass on the street without noticing. But I noticed. "Good book?" I asked, sliding into the seat across from her. She glanced up, smiling faintly. "It's about memory. How we reconstruct the past to fit the story we want to believe. Sounds cheerful. It's honest." We talked for 2 hours that day. And then we met again the next week. And the week after that. And slowly, quietly, something shifted between us. I started looking forward to our meetings. I started thinking about her when I was alone. I started noticing small things. The way she tilted her head when she was thinking. The way she laughed quietly to herself when she read something absurd. The way she always ordered jasmine tea instead of coffee. I told myself it was just cover. That I was building rapport, establishing trust, positioning myself to gather intelligence. But I knew I was lying, because the truth was, I liked her. I liked the way she listened, really listened, without trying to fill every silence with words. I liked the way she challenged me, quietly, without being aggressive. I liked the way she made me feel like I wasn't just a collection of practiced responses. She made me feel real, and that terrified me. By December, we were seeing each other almost every week. Coffee turned into dinners. Dinners turned into long walks through the city, talking about nothing and everything. She told me she'd grown up in the Bay Area, that her parents had immigrated from China in the 90s, that she'd studied mathematics at UC Berkeley. She told me she didn't have many close friends, that she found it hard to trust people. I told her I understood. I told her I felt the same way, and I did. Because even though I was lying about who I was, even though every detail of my life was a fabrication, the loneliness, that part was real. I hadn't realized how tired I was. How tired I was of pretending. Of watching people instead of knowing them. Of building relationships that were just transactions. of living a life that didn't belong to me. With her, I felt like I could breathe, and that's when I started to slip. I didn't notice it at first. The small ways I was letting my guard down. The way I stopped running counter-surveillance when we met. The way I started telling her things that were true, not about my work, but about myself. My childhood. My fears. The things I missed about having a normal life. She listened. She never pushed. She just let me talk. And God, it felt good, but I should have been paying attention. I should have noticed the way she never talked about her family in detail. The way she deflected certain questions. The way she always paid in cash. The way she never invited me to her apartment. I should have seen it, but I didn't. Because I didn't want to dot. It was early February when I first kissed her. We were standing on the Embarcadero, watching the lights reflect off the water. The air was cold. She was wearing a red scarf, thin, silk, the kind that barely kept you warm. I remember thinking it looked out of place, like something from another time. I like being around you, she said quietly. Why? She looked at me, and for the first time, I saw something vulnerable in her eyes. Something that looked almost like fear. Because you don't ask me to be anything other than what I am. I didn't know what to say. So I kissed her, and she kissed me back. And for one perfect reckless moment, I forgot who I was. I forgot what I did. I forgot that every part of my life was a lie. I just felt human. That night, I went home and stared at the ceiling for hours, my mind racing. I knew I was in trouble. I knew I'd crossed a line. I knew I should report this, flag the relationship, step back, hand her file to someone else. But I didn't, because I didn't want to lose her. And that was the moment I stopped being a spy. That was the moment I became something else. Something weaker. Something dangerous. CIA has a long history of training officers to resist emotional attachment. They call it compartmentalization. The ability to separate your mission from your feelings. The ability to use people without letting them use you. It's a skill they drill into you from day one. They show you case studies, stories of operatives who fell in love, who got compromised, who ended up dead or worse. They tell you that love is a weapon, that the enemy will use it against you, that the moment you care about someone more than the mission, you've already lost. I knew all of this. I'd taught some of this, but knowing it didn't matter, because love doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't care about your training or your discipline or your sense of duty. It just happens. And once it does, it changes everything. By March, we were spending almost every evening together. She'd started staying over at my apartment. We'd cook dinner, watch movies, talk until 2 in the morning. She told me she'd never felt this comfortable with anyone before, that she'd spent most of her life pretending to be someone she wasn't. I told her I knew exactly what she meant, and I did, because even though I was lying to her about my name, my job, my entire identity, I wasn't lying about how I felt. I loved her. I loved the way she made me feel seen, the way she made me feel like I wasn't just a tool, just a function, just a ghost moving through other people's lives. She made me feel like I mattered. And that was the most dangerous thing of all. I didn't know she was SS. I didn't know she was a sleeper agent. I didn't know that. While I was falling in love with her, she was buried so deep in her own cover that even she wasn't sure who she was anymore. I didn't know any of it. Not until it was too late. The Ministry of State Security, China's civilian intelligence agency, is one of the most sophisticated intelligence organizations in the world. Unlike the KGB or the CIA, which relied heavily on human intelligence and covert operations during the Cold War, the MSS focuses on long-term strategic infiltration. They plant sleeper agents, people who live normal lives, sometimes for decades, waiting for activation. These agents don't break into buildings or steal documents. They don't meet in dark alleys or pass microfilm in dead drops. They just exist. They build careers, relationships, identities. They become part of the fabric of society. And when the time comes, they use those relationships to gather intelligence, influence decisions, or compromise targets. Lena was one of them. She'd been in the United States since she was a teenager. She'd gone to college here, built a career here. She had friends, co-workers, a life. She wasn't some shadowy operative in a trench coat. She was just a woman trying to survive. But she was also a weapon, and I never saw it coming. It was late. April, when everything started to unravel. I'd been monitoring a series of cyber attacks targeting U.S. defense contractors, attacks that intelligence analysts believed were linked to a Chinese state-sponsored group. The agency had identified several individuals in the Bay Area who were suspected of facilitating these operations. One of them was a venture capitalist named Shun Wei, the same man whose firm had hosted the event where I met Li Na. I was tasked with getting closer to him, finding out who he was meeting, where his money was going, who he was reporting to, and that's when I saw the surveillance photos. Shun Wei at a cafe in Palo Alto, sitting across from someone. Li Na. At first, I told myself it was a coincidence, that she was just doing her job, risk assessment, data analysis, that she probably consulted for the same VC firms I was investigating. But then I saw the second photo, the third, the fourth, meetings spanning months, always discreet, always brief, always in public places, and I knew what she was. I should have reported it immediately. I should have pulled back, cut contact, let the counterintelligence team handle it, but I didn't. Instead, I went to her apartment. She opened the door, wearing the same red scarf she'd been wearing the night I kissed her. She smiled when she saw me, but the smile faded when she saw my face. "What's wrong?" she asked. I stepped inside, closing the door behind me. "Tell me the truth," I said quietly. She didn't move, didn't blink, just stood there, watching me with those same sharp, calculating eyes. "About what?" She said, "About who you are." Silence, and then, slowly, she nodded. "I was wondering when you'd figure it out," she said. She didn't deny it. She didn't try to explain. She just told me the truth. She'd been recruited by the MSS when she was 19. They'd approached her during her sophomore year at Berkeley, told her she could help her country, told her she'd be protecting China from foreign aggression. She'd been young, idealistic, angry at the way her family had been treated in America. So she'd said yes. They'd trained her for 2 years, taught her how to blend in, how to build cover, how to report without being detected. And then they'd sent her back to California and told her to wait. She'd waited for 8 years. She'd built a career, made friends, lived a normal life. And slowly, quietly, she'd started to forget why she was there. She'd started to feel like the person she was pretending to be was more real than the person she'd been trained to be. And then they activated her. They told her to get close to Shun Wei, to monitor his contacts, to identify which American companies were vulnerable to infiltration, to feed them information. So she did, because that's what she'd been trained to do. But then she met me. And everything changed. "I wasn't supposed to care about you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I wasn't supposed to feel anything. But I did, and I didn't know how to stop." I stood there, staring at her, my mind racing. Part of me wanted to walk away. Part of me wanted to call it in, have her arrested, end it cleanly. But I couldn't, because I understood what it felt like to live a lie so long that you forgot what the truth looked like. I understood what it felt like to pretend to be someone you weren't, until one day you looked in the mirror and didn't recognize yourself. I understood her, and that made everything worse. "What do we do now?" she asked. I didn't answer, because I didn't know. For 3 weeks, I did nothing. I didn't report her. I didn't cut contact. I just continued. I kept seeing her, kept pretending everything was normal, kept lying to myself that there was a way out of this, but there wasn't, because the truth was, we were both ghosts. 2 people playing roles so completely that we'd forgotten who we really were. And the only time either of us felt real was when we were together. That's what love does. It strips away the lies. It forces you to see yourself and the person you love with brutal clarity. And sometimes, what you see destroys you. The FBI arrested her on May 15th. They raided her apartment at 6 in the morning. I wasn't there. I was at my own place, staring at my phone, knowing it was coming, knowing I should have stopped it, knowing I couldn't. They called me an hour later, told me she'd been taken into custody, told me she was a Chinese intelligence officer, told me I was being recalled to Langley for debriefing. They asked me if I'd known. I lied. I told them I hadn't. But they didn't believe me. I saw her one last time. They were moving her out of the building in handcuffs, flanked by federal agents. The street was blocked off. There were news cameras everywhere. The whole world was watching Dot, and in the middle of it all, she looked at me, Dot. Her face was blank. Her body was rigid. But her eyes were soft. And as they pushed her into the car, she leaned toward me, just for a second, and whispered, "You were the only thing real." And then she was gone. They pulled my security clearance the next day. They told me I was under investigation for counterintelligence violations, that I'd compromised an ongoing operation, that I'd allowed my personal feelings to jeopardize national security. They were right. I had. They didn't charge me. They didn't have enough evidence. But they didn't need to, because they knew. They knew I'd crossed the line. They knew I'd let myself care about someone I was supposed to be watching. They knew I'd chosen her over the mission, Dot, and in their world, that was unforgivable, Dot, so they erased me. They revoked my clearance, terminated my cover, pulled me out of the field. They told me I was lucky. I wasn't going to prison. They told me to disappear, Dot, so I did. I live in Portland now. I work in a bookstore. I don't talk to anyone from my old life. I don't use my real name. I don't exist anymore, Dot, and every day I think about her. I think about the way she looked at me that last time, the way she whispered those words, the way she made me feel like I mattered, and I wonder if any of it was real. I wonder if she loved me, or if I was just another target, just another assignment, just another lie in a life built on lies. But then I remember the way she smiled when she thought I wasn't looking, the way she held my hand a little too tightly, the way she told me she felt safe with me. And I think maybe, just maybe, she was telling the truth. Maybe we were both pretending to be something we weren't. Maybe we were both lost. And maybe, for just a little while, we found each other. The CIA trains you to believe that love is weakness, that attachment is vulnerability, that caring about someone makes you compromised. And they're right, because loving her destroyed me. It stripped away everything I'd built, everything I believed in, everything I was. But it also gave me something I'd never had before. It gave me a moment of truth, a moment where I wasn't a spy or a case officer or a tool. I was just a man who loved someone he shouldn't have, man who chose love over duty, a man who lost everything because of it. I don't know where she is now. I don't know if she's in prison, or if they sent her back to China, or if she's somewhere in between. I don't know if she thinks about me. I don't know if she regrets it, but I know this. She was the only thing real, and that's enough. People think spies die on missions, but the truth is, most of us die long before that. We die the moment we put on the mask, the moment we trade our identity for a cover story, the moment we learn to lie so well that we forget what honesty feels like. We die slowly, invisibly, one lie at a time, and we keep walking through the world like we're still alive, but we're not. We're ghosts, and the only time we feel human again is when we let ourselves care about someone, even if it destroys us. I loved a ghost, and she destroyed. And so, but for one perfect, reckless, impossible moment, I was real. And that's something no mission, no agency, no country can ever take away from me, even if it cost me everything, even if it left me here, alone with nothing but memories and regrets, and a red silk scarf I kept from her apartment before they sealed it off, even if I'll never see her again. It was worth it. Because love, real love, doesn't ask for permission, it doesn't care about your duty or your training or your sense of loyalty, it just happens. And when it does, it changes everything. My name is Nathan Price. I was a CIA deep cover operative for 15 years. And this is the story of how I fell in love with a Chinese sleeper agent and lost everything. But in losing everything, I found the one thing I'd been searching for my entire life, myself, and for that, for one fleeting, fragile, impossible moment of truth, I would do it all over again, even knowing how it ends, even knowing the cost, because she was right, was the only thing real in her life, and she was the only thing real in mine. And sometimes, that's enough. Sometimes, that's all we get.